I am very honored to be here and to be representing the United States and most importantly our family as well. So before I get started, I did want to have my son is actually here with me who this presentation is all about. So I would like him to stand real briefly. So Bo, if you could stand and just kind of wave to the room, everybody will know who we're talking to. So that's the face of the presentation.
Does he want to come up?
Bo, you're welcome to come up. There's an extra chair if you'd like to come up and sit with me.
Yeah, go on.
No, peer pressure. Peer pressure. You can decide.
Well done.
And for disclosures, I actually only have one honorarium that I have received, and that's from the National Hemophilia Foundation. So just a little bit about what I planned to talk about today was our initial hemophilia diagnosis, our inhibitor diagnosis, the inhibitor treatment that we've underwent, living life with inhibitors and bleeds, and many bleeds and bleeds, and where we're at today. So this family picture, as you've now met Bo, my husband Craig is in the audience, and my daughter Jordan is 19, and she's going to be a sophomore at college. Ooh. And she actually was unable to be with us today. So Bo was diagnosed at the age of 6 months. We had no known family history, and he has severe factor VIII. We were diagnosed because we had a Johnny jumper in our doorway in the house. He loved to jump, and our daughter loved it as well. And we got a bruise that was under his arm that was about 2 to 3 inches long and about an inch thick, and it was as hard as a rock. And at that given time, that's when we determined something wasn't quite right. We had some pea-sized bruising on the back of his head, and so that's when we figured out he was circumcised. He did rebleed with circumcision, however, it stopped on its own. Our inhibitor detection just literally rocked our world. You know, we were not only dealing with the diagnosis of hemophilia and trying to comprehend what a hemophilia diagnosis meant for our family, but then at the age of 18 months, which was our 1-year comprehensive care clinic visit, that's actually where the inhibitor was detected. And it was a routine blood test. There was no indication of that we thought there was an inhibitor. It started low, and we watched it. So we watched it, and I have a slide that shows our levels, but we watched it from like March to June. So every month we tested it. The other thing that I don't have on this slide that I wanted to address is that our cost of care went from approximately $250,000 annually on average to right now it's anywhere from $1 to $5 million a year, depending upon the year and the number of bleeds we have. So this slide here is the inhibitor diagnosis, and for those of you that are number people, I'm a visual person and I just really like to see the numbers. But what this shows for anybody in this room that has a child with an inhibitor is the amount of tears and sleepless nights that this slide shows, because there's so much worry that goes into and fear of what is my child's life going to be like now. We have this incredible complication. And this slide is just to show our journey, and we don't even have all the levels on here, but this just shows this is our 5th time of treating our inhibitor. And as you can see, in 2014 is when it was detected, 2004 is when it detected. That first immune tolerance was incredibly successful. We started in June, and by September, it was gone. And we knew it was gone because even before the blood test showed it, because literally he went from having bruises everywhere to we had no bruises. This kid was like, you would have never known he even had hemophilia because of the amount of factor he had. That lasted 4 years. We have no idea why it came back. And all of a sudden it came back in 2008. And then it was away for a couple of years, not quite. In 2010 it was back. 2011 it was back. 2010 it was undetectable. 2011 it was back. And then in 2012 is really when it completely rocked our world. So we have been struggling with it ever since. It's really been fluctuating. I mean, we're manageable right now, but there was about a year to a year and a half in there where it was not manageable. So the inhibitor treatment, I love to show through pictures, so I hope you guys are enjoying the pictures. So our immune tolerance was daily on the same form of factor that the inhibitor was detected on it. We did try another one during one of those years just to see if by chance having a different factor would help, and it didn't. We had the same outcome. We absolutely had to have vein access help, so we have had 2 ports over the course of the 13 years that Bo has been alive. However, like the last 4 years that he's done, or 3 years that he's done immune tolerance, he's primarily done it with his veins because he doesn't like his port. So we need to have it taken out. We just haven't yet. The family commitment is something that if you are in a position where you're going to be considering immune tolerance, I'm here to tell you that it is a true family commitment because you absolutely have to be compliant for it to work, and it truly does affect our whole family. You know, we're fortunate that our daughter is 5 years older than Bo, and so she totally played a role, and a huge role, in his care and his inhibitor therapy as well. And this slide I really have up there just to kind of have people kind of take it in, because we are, as a family, always have to be on high alert with his bleeding disorder. We do not have the luxury of looking at a bleed and saying, well, we're just going to wait and see how it progresses. Like, he says, hey, something hurts, I think it's a bleed, and like everything stops and factor gets mixed up. It doesn't matter if we're in a car, if we're at an amusement park, wherever we're at, we infuse. And so this is our reality. It is minutes between him standing on his own 2 feet to being on crutches to being in a wheelchair. Our treatment is daily for immune tolerance. However, we infuse multiple times a day when he has a bleed. There was one bleed in particular that my husband and I slept with our cell phones, and we took turns because for 3 days we treated every 2 hours. And in addition to that, we were working. We would not have been able to do this without home care nursing as well. So it truly is a greater community that cares for our child. It's lots of rice, rest, ice, compression, and elevation, as you can see on that one picture with the ice packs on his legs. And for pain, we use Celebrex, mostly to help with inflammation, but also as a pain management tool, Tylenol for minor pain, and Dilaudid when we absolutely have to have something a little bit more before going to the hospital. For hospitalizations, we've had 6 hospital stays, 2 outpatient stays, and when I say outpatient, I mean like a 23-hour type observation. We've had a psoas bleed, and this was one where I definitely get the Mother of the Year award, not so much, but we thought he had the flu, and in hindsight, he was vomiting due to the pain that he was in. We were in the hospital for 1 week on complete bed rest. There was no school for an additional week. And then when he went to school, there were several restrictions. Simple things like he had to be in the back of the classroom line because no child could be behind him and jostle him. He sat at the lunchroom table at the farthest corner back by a wall, and another child would go and get his tray because they did not want to take the risk of a lunch tray hitting his back or even kids just running into him. He did not go out for recess. His friends have been absolutely amazing, and they took turns sitting with him and doing fun things like in the classroom. And it gave him the opportunity to also get caught up on some homework that he needed to do. Another bleed that we've experienced was a double calf bleed, and this is one that we're going to show a video. So there's a little bit of talk about that video in that video, but I do want to share with you that we have one editorial comment on the video, is that he was in the wheelchair for 6 weeks, not 6 months. So you can just remember that when we get there. In the heat of the moment, we kind of said months instead of weeks. when he had that double calf bleed, so just imagine your child is, I think he was 11 at this time, and he weighed approximately 70 to 80 pounds. And we had to, if he wasn't in the wheelchair and we had to get him somewhere, normally you'd think, oh, I'm going to put my child on my hip and I'm going to carry him. Well, his legs absolutely could not dangle, so we had to carry him cradled like a baby. And that was up the stairs was our main bathroom. We had a small bathroom downstairs, but bathing, sleeping, and everything was upstairs. So that actually spurred my husband and I onto a marathon remodel project that we're still doing to today. But we are going to be remodeling our home to have a full-size bathroom downstairs, so that way if we ever get into a wheelchair situation, that living room that now is a little bit larger, we can put a privacy screen up, and we can put a mattress on the floor, and he would have all facilities down on one level if needed. Those were definitely things I didn't think about when I was pregnant with this child by any means. We did, during our course of care, go and do a second opinion, and we actually went to Rush in Chicago and received that second opinion. And it was one where we have an amazing treatment center, but we just felt like there was more that could be done. And so we met with Dr. Valentino and his team, and we were able to come back with a little bit more of an aggressive treatment plan. And luckily our HTC said, absolutely, we'll work with you on it. So we are so grateful. There's several different resources that we've utilized in our community. And when I say resources, I just mean really the support systems that we've had. We have amazing friends. We have amazing family. The school has been tremendous. The hemophilia community and all the people that work in the hemophilia community, the other inhibitor patients and families have just been it's like a family beyond a family beyond a family. I always say there's a greater hemophilia family, but that inhibitor family is even stronger. So in this picture, you'll see Bo working with our physical therapist, Joel, and this was when he was still in the wheelchair. So he was able to sit in a chair. We were able to lift him into a chair, and Joel was working on some stretches on his feet. And during this double calf bleed, he was still kind of at the age where Halloween was a big thing. And so he had intentions of going as a soldier. And anybody that knows Bo knows that he's a humongous military buff. And he understands he cannot be in the military, but man, if he could, he would love to be. And so instead of going as an Army soldier, he had to go as a wounded warrior, which was totally okay that year. And this is just a little bit more about our physical therapy. We've done aquatherapy. This was the first time that Bo actually was able to stand on his own 2 feet, was submerged in water on a treadmill. And still to this day, when we have issues, we call Joel and say, hey, can we meet you at sports medicine? We'd like to do water therapy. And we do. It's been a humongous saver for our family. We do work with, because we live approximately an hour away from our treatment center. So going to the physical therapist at our treatment center isn't always available or in our schedule. So we do work with a local therapist as well. And you can see it's a lot of commitment, hard work, pain, but it is very rewarding. Now, one of the things that I do want to also talk about is with school. His friends, as I already alluded to, have been amazing, but this picture is something fun that he got to do with his friend Dustin, and then his other friend Matt is sitting by him at the desk. But we never really truly understood the impact that having hemophilia and an inhibitor on a family, on a school, and as your classmates, until we stopped in one day when he was in his wheelchair, and we went in and we visited with the school, and we just decided we had like an extra 10 minutes. Hey, let's just pop in, impromptu. We walked in the class and just said, sorry, we're going to interrupt. And they had all sent him homemade cards to the hospital and said, we hope you get better. And they were talking about, we know we can't play on the monkey bars for a few weeks, and how that was important to all of them at that time. But later we got an email from his teacher, and she had just said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that one of the kids just was very upset, and he cried most of the rest of the day because he just couldn't stomach seeing his friend in a wheelchair. So it just really made us realize that we have to be very very cognizant of the friend's relationship and what they're going through as well. So as a result of that, we actually did some hemophilia education with his class. We actually brought some education to the class. And my husband and I provided a pizza party to his class instead of going and having school lunch one day as a thank you, because they took him on countless trips in his wheelchair to his locker, to the lunchroom, wherever he needed to go. He always had a volunteer to take him. And then where I'm going to show you now is we had a small video done on our family, and so I'd like to show that video.
I have been doing this ever since I was 7. I do it once a day.
He had like pea-sized bruising on the back of his head and almost looked like fingerprints like under his arms from people picking him up. And so we went in early for his 6-month checkup. When we took him in, they did blood work, and we knew something wasn't right when we didn't have the blood work back like within the same day or even the next day. And so then finally they called and they said, we believe he has what's called hemophilia. We personally didn't even know what hemophilia was or how to spell it. And at that point in time, they already had an appointment for us to come down the following week to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital to see a pediatric hematologist. It really just takes your breath away, because you just look at this baby and they're perfectly happy, healthy, and normal, and then all of a sudden you're told that you have a lifelong chronic disorder. We feared for his future. You know, what was it going to be like for him to crawl? What was it going to be like for him to walk? What if he fell down? Was my child going to die? Was he going to bleed to death? We soon learned that we have what it takes to fix him. It's just a matter of it all has to be done through an IV. So starting an IV on a child that's 6 months old, 7 months old, 8 months old is not fun at all. But I will tell you, we at least feel very fortunate that we have what it takes to fix him when things are broken. With regards to hemophilia, most people have a preconceived notion that if he gets cut, he's going to bleed to death. Bo does not bleed any faster than you or I, but he bleeds longer. An inhibitor is actually the largest complication that you can have with hemophilia, and it affects 30% of people with hemophilia A, which is what Bo has. His body views his medicine as a foreign object. So you can kind of think of it like a fever. The fever comes in when somebody's sick to fight off the infection. Well, the inhibitor comes in and it attacks his medicine. And so we were so happy that we have this great care within just 45 minutes to an hour from our home, because they were the ones that diagnosed us with a bleeding disorder. And with having that bleeding disorder, they're the only comprehensive care clinic in the state of Iowa to care for my son. The medical team is like an extension of our family. Our relationship with the University of Iowa is for as long as we live in the state of Iowa and as long as he's alive. I mean, so this is a lifelong relationship. The hematology department offers summer camp for kids with hemophilia.
They do the camp every year, and when Bo was 7, he actually learned how to do his own medicine himself. So he could actually, at 7, could mix it up, inject it right in the vein. So once we got to that point, it was a lot easier. Bo's very accepting of his condition, but from the time he was born to where he's old enough to remember, he doesn't know anything different. He's always had to have shots every day, and then if he had to bleed, get more shots on top of that yet.
Hemophilia restricts me from doing certain things that I wish I could do. I would kind of describe it as like being like someone telling you can't do this or you get in trouble. It's kind of that, except physical.
A few years ago, Kari was out of town, of course, when this happens, but he had a bleed in one of his calf muscles and did his medicine, sent him to school with crutches, and by the time I picked him up, he walked halfway back to the building because they were out back playing, and he was just sitting out back on a chair watching them play. And we got about halfway to the building, and he says, my other leg really hurts. So I picked him up and carried him out to the truck, and that was the last time he walked for 6 months.
Bo has taught me that we can't control everything, and that some things we just have to ride out. And as hard as that is, that sometimes we just have to be positive, think of the best, and to understand that as hard as today may have been, that tomorrow is a new day, and that we're going to heal, and that we're going to get better every single day.
When I was little, I did baseball, But I quit that after a year when I got a bleed in my arm for swinging the bat too hard. When I'm in the hospital, they always make sure to take care of me. I would say thank you for being by my side for all these years and being there to support me whenever I needed it.
So that video was done by our hospital as a promotion that they had going on, and so it was really neat to be able to be a part of that with them, and so it was really fun to do. But yeah, after we saw it, there was no time to change it. We were like, oh, the 6 months is in there, but that's all right, instead of 6 weeks, but that's all right. So one of the things that I had in my notes that I wanted to just kind of talk about as well was that the 1 year when we were so upside down in our care is, as most of you know, or I don't know how all treatment centers are, but generally in Iowa we go once a year for a comprehensive care clinic. And so that 1 year he missed 30 days of school and he had 23 HTC visits in that 1 year. So just to show like how many trips back and forth. That was about 2,300 miles on my car too. So anyway, so where are we at today? So we are still doing immune tolerance. We've been doing daily for 3.5 years this last time. So, we've been considered failed, but we still didn't want to give up on it. So we've decided to switch to a long-acting product so that way we could infuse every other day instead of every day. So, that's 180 less needle pokes a year. So that's pretty significant for a 13-year-old boy. Our inhibitor levels since starting, because I know that's pretty new for anybody to even be considered doing immune tolerance on that, is that, as you can see, it started low, it spiked up a little bit, but now it's went back down. And, right now we're managing, and we're happy for that. So thank you. And I forgot that I had this here, but this is totally just to show where are we at today. He loves to jump off rocks. He loves the high dive at the swimming pool, which I guess all kids with hemophilia must love everything high and jumping. He just participated in summer camp, and these are his nurses, his nurse that initially diagnosed him, his 2 current treatment center nurses, and then his pediatric hematologist right now. And we love our Iowa Hawkeyes, and he was recognized with the team, so there he is standing with the team, and the gentleman he was recognized with let him wear his Super Bowl ring while he was recognized, so that was pretty special to us as well. So thank you.